Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining me for another exciting episode of Unseen Earth. Picture the most alone you've ever felt. Now multiply it by 10,000. You're in a wooden canoe. No engine, no map, no radio. The nearest human being is 2,000 miles away. The ocean is trying to capsize you. It's been weeks since you left shore. And then you see it. A tiny volcanic rock in the middle of nowhere. You have no idea what's on it. You have no idea if anyone's ever been there. But you sail toward it anyway. And when you step onto that shore for the very first time in human history...
This is Rapa Nui. Most of you know it as Easter Island. It is, without any close competition, the most remote inhabited place on Earth. The nearest landmass is Pitcairn Island, itself one of the most isolated places on the planet, and it is still over 2,000 kilometers away. The nearest continent is 3,700 kilometers to the east. Put that in perspective. If Easter Island were in the middle of the United States, the closest city would be in a different ocean. And yet people live there. People have lived there for over 1,000 years. So the first question history owes us an answer to is how? The Polynesians were the greatest open ocean navigators who have ever existed on this planet. Bar none. While Europeans were still hugging coastlines, the Polynesians were crossing the Pacific, the biggest geographic feature on Earth, in double-hulled wooden canoes. They read the stars like a map. They felt ocean swells beneath the hull to know which direction land was in. They tracked the migration of birds. They tasted the water for freshwater mixing from river estuaries. They watched cloud formations that form differently over islands than over open ocean. They settled every habitable island in the Pacific Triangle, from Hawaii in the north to New Zealand in the south to Easter Island in the east. Modern genetic testing and linguistic analysis have confirmed without a doubt that the people of Rapa Nui are Polynesian. They came from the Marquesas Islands, roughly 3,000 kilometers to the northwest. Best estimates place their arrival somewhere between 800 and 1,200 years after the birth of Christ. But here is the thing that blows my mind every time. Easter Island is so small, so isolated, so featureless from the open ocean that it is essentially invisible until you are almost on top of it. Finding it was not just navigation. It was a miracle of human persistence. And what they did after they arrived, that is where the story gets truly insane. Act 2, the Stone Army, there are 900 of them. 900 enormous stone figures carved from a single volcanic crater called Rano Raraku. The average statue stands 4 meters tall, about the height of a 2-story building, and weighs 14 tons. The biggest one ever successfully raised stands 10 meters tall and weighs 82 tons. That is roughly the weight of 11 pickup trucks. And the largest one ever attempted, never finished, still lying in the quarry, is 21 meters long. If it had ever been moved and raised, it would have weighed 270 tons. 270 tons. No wheels. No metal tools. No animals strong enough to help. Just human hands and volcanic rock. For over a century, the world's best engineers and archaeologists could not figure out how these statues were moved from the quarry, some of them up to 18 kilometers away, across rough and hilly terrain. The theories were wild. Ancient aliens, lost technology, forgotten machines, and then came the answer from the most obvious source imaginable. Researchers sat down with Rapa Nui descendants and asked them. The islanders had always said the Moai walked. Academics assumed this was folklore. It was not. Using 3 ropes attached to a statue's head and a team of just 18 people, researchers demonstrated that a Moai replica could be made to rock and shuffle forward upright, tipping from side to side and moving its base forward incrementally with each pull. Like a refrigerator being moved across a floor, the myth was a memory. The people of Rapa Nui had been preserving the engineering instructions in their oral tradition for generations, and the outside world had dismissed it as legend. But it is not just how they move the statues that should amaze you. It is why. The Moai faced inland, not out to sea. Their backs were always to the ocean. They were not monuments to the horizon. They were guardians of the living. Each statue represented a deified ancestor. Their eyes, made of white coral with obsidian pupils, were never installed permanently. They were only placed during sacred ceremonies to activate the statue, to channel what the Rapa Nui called mana, ancestral power, divine energy, pouring down over the community like a blessing. The islanders were not building tourist attractions. They were building a system of spiritual protection for their people, and then suddenly, catastrophically, they stopped. Act 3. The greatest unsolved mystery. There are nearly 400 statues in the quarry at Rano Raraku, in various stages of completion. Some are fully carved but never detached from the rock. Some are half-finished, some are just outlines scratched into the volcanic stone, and scattered around them are the tools they used. Chisels, hammers, all of it just lying there, as if the entire workforce received some signal and walked away from their work, mid-carving, and never came back. No one knows why. There is no historical record, no oral tradition that fully explains it. The carving stopped. The walking of the Moai stopped. Something happened and no one alive today knows what it was. And here is what makes this mystery even deeper. At some point, many of the already raised Moai were deliberately toppled, all of them, pushed face first into the earth. Knocking a Moai over was not easy. It would have required as much organization as raising one. This was not random vandalism. It was systematic, intentional, deeply meaningful to whoever did it, and the reason? Still unknown. And then, just when you think the mysteries could not get thicker, there is this. Rongorongo, a written script, found only on Rapa Nui, carved into wooden tablets in intricate microscopic glyphs. It is one of the only writing systems ever independently developed in all of Oceania. And despite over 150 years of effort from the world's best linguists and cryptographers, it has never been deciphered. Not a single word. The tablets survived European contact in small numbers, enough to know the system is sophisticated. Not enough, and without enough fluent native speakers remaining to crack the code. Whatever the Rongorongo says, the history of the island, its kings, its cosmology, its engineering secrets, it may remain silent forever. That thought should disturb you. It disturbs me. Act 4. The lie we were taught. Now let us talk about what you were probably taught in school. The Easter Island story has been used for decades as a cautionary environmental fable. The idea goes like this. The islanders were so obsessed with building their statues that they cut down every tree on the island to move them. Without trees, the soil eroded. Crops failed. Food ran out. Society descended into chaos and cannibalism. The civilization destroyed itself. This version was quoted in best-selling books, TED Talks, college textbooks. It is probably in a documentary you watched in middle school. It is almost certainly wrong. Here is what the evidence actually shows. Yes, the island was deforested. Rapa Nui was once covered in a species of giant palm tree. Today, almost nothing. But modern sediment analysis and pollen records tell a more complicated story. The deforestation was likely driven significantly by Polynesian rats, a species the settlers accidentally brought with them on their canoes, which ate palm seeds faster than the trees could regenerate. The islanders were victims of an ecological cascade they could not have fully understood. But here is the bigger problem with the collapse narrative. When Europeans first arrived on Easter Island on April 5th of 1722, Easter Sunday, hence the name, the Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen found an island that was not a wasteland. It was a functioning society. Estimates put the population at between 3,000 and 9,000 people. The island had challenges, but it was not a dead civilization. It was not a cautionary tale. What came after European contact, that was the catastrophe. Smallpox, tuberculosis, measles. Diseases the islanders had zero immunity to, carried by every European ship that passed. And then, in 1862, the single most devastating event in Rapa Nui history. Peruvian slave raiders arrived with 7 ships. In a series of coordinated raids, they captured approximately 1,500 Rapa Nui people, including virtually the entire aristocratic and priestly class. The chiefs, the knowledge keepers, the people who could read Rongorongo, the people who held the history of the island in their memory. They were taken to Peru to work in guano mines. International outrage eventually forced Peru to repatriate the survivors. 90% of them had already died. The 15 people who made it back to the island brought smallpox with them. 15 people returning from slavery to an island already weakened by disease. By 1877, the entire population of Rapa Nui had collapsed to 111 people. 111. From a thriving civilization of thousands. 111. This was not a parable about humans destroying the environment. This was a genocide. Enabled by slavery, disease, and colonial greed, and then conveniently rewritten as a morality tale about primitive people who could not manage their own resources. The version we were taught erased the perpetrators. It blamed the victims. Act 5. The twist science just found. And now, just when you think you understand the full picture, science throws in one more curveball. DNA studies published in the last decade have revealed something extraordinary. The people of Rapa Nui mixed with native South Americans sometime around 1150 in the year 1150, before any Europeans set foot on the island, before any recorded contact between the continents, over 300 years before Columbus. Someone, whether Polynesian sailors or South American coastal people or both, crossed the open Pacific and made contact. We do not know exactly how. We do not know exactly who initiated it. We do not know if it happened once or many times. But the genetic fingerprint is undeniable. And it gets even wilder. Traces of the South American sweet potato, a crop that could not have floated across the ocean on its own, were already present across Polynesia long before European contact. The Polynesians did not accidentally bump into South America. They traded with it. They knew it was there, and then they came back. The ocean was not a barrier to these people. It was a highway. Act 6. The people who survived the unsurvivable. Here is the part of the story that gets forgotten in every documentary about Easter Island. The Rapa Nui people survived. Think about what they endured. Isolation for 1,000 years. Ecological stress. Internal conflict. Slave raids that took their entire intellectual class. Waves of disease. Annexation by Chile in 1888, when the island was fenced off, and the surviving population was confined to a single village, while the rest of their homeland was used as a sheep ranch. And still they survived. Today, roughly 9,000 people live on Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui language is being actively revived. Cultural practices are being restored. Young people are learning to carve. The festivals celebrate the music, the art, and the identity of a people who refuse to disappear. The Moai that were toppled have, many of them, been raised again. The Chilean government and the Rapa Nui people are in ongoing negotiations for greater autonomy, for the right to govern themselves on the land their ancestors found in the middle of an impossible ocean. The story is not over. It never was. Outro. We were taught that Easter Island is a warning about what happens when humans destroy their environment. And yes, we should take care of this planet. That is true. But the actual lesson of Rapa Nui is different. It is about what human beings are capable of. A small group of people found a rock in the middle of the ocean and decided to call it home. They built a civilization, a written language, a system of spiritual guardianship carved in stone so massive it has lasted 1,000 years. They navigated the largest ocean on the planet using nothing but the sky and the sea. They survived things that should have erased them. The Moai still stand. They were never really about the past. They were always about what comes next.